You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Derek, and I am joined by your co-hosts, Kevin and Alex. Guys, how we doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. Another Tuesday, another week in the books. This week was slightly more predictable, but not by much. There are definitely some whirlwinds going on, specifically in the NFC, that make it really, really hard to gamble on these games. And I'm not liking it because they're costing me parlays.
Facts.
Yeah, I think I'm going to retire from fantasy football after this week. I, much like a lot of other people, got deboed on Monday night, and that was not very fun in my work league. Had a comfortable lead. Had Darrell Henderson going up against Jimmy Garoppolo and Deebo Samuel, and what was a comfortable lead turned into an L. So a little disappointed in that, little disappointed in the home league where I don't even know what to do with this team anymore. It's so I don't even think that the playoffs are in reach. I think, guys, in all of the leagues that I'm in, that the playoffs are a thing, save for the Guillotine League, which I'm limping to the barn every week. I think I am out of playoff contention already. Like, I don't think I have a shot at the playoffs, and let me tell you how much fun that is in week 11 that we're going into to not have a shot at the playoffs in any of the leagues I'm in. So I am a scorned fantasy football owner this week.
You know, I can't complain too much about some of my leagues because I pulled off some pretty good ones. Feeling pretty strong about a couple of my teams. We've got a couple of these guys just kind of heading in the right direction, starting to get healthy, starting to get some guys back off the IR, things like that, heading down the stretch here, this is the time of year you like seeing these guys come back and really kind of bring some things around here. So I'm liking the fact some of my teams are getting healthy at the right time, and we're starting to click. We're starting to get some performances out of that. Nate on YouTube chiming in saying, hey, Nate, thanks for tuning in. Always appreciate you seeing you in the chat there. Again, guys, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, any questions for fantasy, throw them out here. Let's talk about them. Let's rock and roll. We do have a great show for you tonight, right? We're going to talk about some of the pines and shines, the recaps, the clutch, the not so much. We've got the waiver wire that we're going to hit through, and that can be a little tricky this week navigating that one. We've also got some other fun things kind of planned for you where we're going to talk some more keep trade cut type of things with rest of the season type of deals going on there. So very excited to talk to you guys about all of that. If you haven't done so already, you can find us on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Good Old Boys FF. One of the best places to help us out is to head over to YouTube on the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button, ring the bell. We do the show live for you 3 times a week during season, and one of the best ways to help us out. But guys, let's go ahead and talk about week 10 there a little bit more so, right? We hit up some of the fantasy implications, things like that. We hit, I like Kevin's NFC is a crapshoot on it, but what were some of your other takeaways and thoughts from week 10?
It was kind of a rebound week for some of these teams, right? Dallas got embarrassed by Denver last week in week 9, came out in week 10, rebounded. They responded well, absolutely drummed Atlanta. So that was great for fantasy purposes. Dak and CeeDee Lamb were in full effect. Zeke fell in the end zone a few times. So everybody kind of got a little piece of that pie. So that was nice. I think there were still some shockers, right? Carolina, Cam Newton, I'm back, right? Like, comes in, and what's he do? He instantly screws Christian McCaffrey owners twice. Not once, but twice in his return. Running one in himself and then throwing one to the mystery man, Robbie Anderson. Oh, my gosh, there was finally a sighting of him. And then you have the Washington football team laying the wood to Tampa Bay. Like, absolutely owning that game. And then the Monday night game with the 49ers laying the wood to the Rams, for the second week in a row, the Rams come out, they turn the ball over early, they dig themselves in a hole, and they just can't figure out how to get out of it. So it was quite interesting. The Bills seem
bounced back.
Yeah, the Bills bounced back, so that looked good. New England is starting to look scary good, guys. Like, New England's just a team. Like, they don't have necessarily standout performers. This is a true Belichickian style team where they all play as a cohesive unit, and sure enough, they just beat the pants off of you until they win the game. So it's going to be interesting down the stretch, right? These races are close. The AFC, I believe, has was it nine or 10 teams all above 500 at the moment, or 500 or better? Excuse me. So it's going to be a fun run down the stretch to kind of see what goes on there. And then in the NFC, outside of your division leaders, I think the NFC South might be interesting between the Saints and the Buccaneers to see which team can kind of pull it together down the stretch. But outside of that, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? The Cowboys have kind of locked up the East. The Packers have kind of locked up the North. And then the West, you have Arizona and what was St. Louis jockeying for position, but
LA,
the Rams. But the Rams can't get out of their own way the last couple of weeks. So it's been super interesting, but it does make for entertaining football, even though some of the fantasy numbers aren't there.
Yeah, I will say the biggest surprise of the week, the Detroit Lions didn't lose, guys.
Right?
They didn't lose. They didn't win, but they didn't lose.
They also didn't win, which didn't help my one of my picks that I had there. But we'll
I don't know. I had
push
in a prop bet with my buddy. I had the Lions plus 9.5. So I'll take that all day, every day. I thought plus 9.5, and I made that pick. For the record, I made that pick before I found out about Big Ben.
I was going to say that line had to have come long before the Big Ben, because even before Big Ben, like right before, it was a +8, and then it went to a +6.5 for the Lions after that news broke. So
Mason Rudolph is so terrible.
Yes.
He really is. Like, he was so proud of himself early on in the game, and then couldn't do absolutely anything. Like, Mason Rudolph is so terrible.
How important is it to have that veteran backup quarterback that you can just plug in and hope to not miss too much of a beat from, what you were doing with your starter? We all know that the starting quarterback, most important position in the NFL, but how important is it to
Can someone tell the Denver Broncos that?
Bill, yes.
No, they aren't going to figure that
We
out.
all know that. Whether or not anybody acts on that in that Denver Broncos organization is completely different. But it's so important to have that veteran backup that you can just plug in. I know it didn't work out very well for Arizona 2 weeks in, but Colt McCoy came in week 9. That offense kept going. It's so brutally important that you have that. And those guys can make a good living. Case Keenum in Cleveland, right? Came in, knows what he's doing, understands the NFL, can get you a win. And as we've seen week in and week out, it's hard to win in this league. And so you get wins when you can get wins. And if you have a viable option there as your backup, you feel a little bit more comfortable. And, sure, you steal wins with a backup, but those stolen wins count just the same as those earned ones.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Another question coming in, Nate on YouTube: Cam Newton or Jalen Hurts? Who you like here?
Hurts. Hurts he's a top 5 quarterback. He's been a top 5 quarterback the whole way. There's no sense in jumping off that bandwagon now that Philadelphia is actually starting to play a little bit more balanced football. I think that actually helps Jalen Hurts. His connection with Devonta Smith is real, as we saw on Sunday against the Broncos. Cam Newton will find some success in Carolina, and he probably will play better and holistically than what Sam Darnold was, in the fact that Cam won't turn the ball over 4 times a game. Christian McCaffrey's back, so that helps Cam too. So Hurts is the clear option for me, but Cam Newton, if you're really struggling at quarterback and can get your hands on Cam Newton, it's not a terrible option, because he does provide a pretty safe floor knowing that he's going to run the ball a little bit, and he has Christian McCaffrey to dump the ball off to a ton, as we saw on Sunday when McCaffrey had 23 touches on 26 opportunities is basically what Christian McCaffrey did. Workhorse, man, straight workhorse.
Alex, any other thoughts? Cam Newton, Jalen Hurts?
I know, we will get into this a little bit later when it comes to some of our projections for this week and for the rest of the season. But for this week, I mean, I think I would stay with Jalen Hurts. I know that Saints defense is not very friendly to running backs, but that just opens up the +1 run game, right? The quarterback run game. So, and Jalen Hurts is a little more apt to do that. And Cam, I think Cam's got a point to prove, and I'm not sure what point that is just yet. Is it that he can still run, or is it that he can still throw, or is it that he can win a football game? And I'm a little hesitant on that point to prove.
Fair enough. Yeah, and this one, it's Jalen Hurts, right? Like, we talked a lot about this one a couple of weeks back when, and this was before the Cam Newton news and all that broke. But one of the points that I made back then was that Jalen Hurts, where he thrives and where we've seen him thrive is when he's got a running game that he can help, that he can kind of lean on a little bit and take, make the defense be a multi-dimensional defense and make them, not being able to target down on one thing, which the play calling has gotten much better. And you've seen the Eagles play better. The offense has looked better since that's come to play. So, and that was really the point that I made, was when you saw Jalen Hurts be really good in the past, when he was at Alabama, they had a really good run game. When he was at Oklahoma and he was a Heisman candidate, well, Oklahoma runs the ball really good and was getting, I think that season, the running backs were averaging 5 or 6 yards an attempt and were putting up multiple, putting up about 150 yards on the ground on average in those games. So Jalen Hurts, where he's able to really do well is when you're able to have a balanced attack and not just have teams pin their ears back, come after him, and then he's got to try and make something with his legs because that line isn't protecting enough to let him get through a progression of reads there. So, I like Jalen Hurts long-term, especially with this newfound play calling that they've got there. Cloudy on YouTube. So happy I grabbed Ingram for Kamara on that one. Definitely worth having that handcuff, and definitely has paid off for you there. We'll see what Kamara does here. He may return this week. Claudia also saying that they need a second running back. Who should I pick up? What are your thoughts here on some pickup options for that one? An interesting one to keep an eye on would be Ramondre Stevenson. We saw Damien Harris make some practice a little bit today, but that's a short week. They've got the Thursday night game, so be worth a stash on that one, because if Damien Harris miss, you'll see Ramondre get the bulk of the workload there. That's one.
Dang it. Sorry. I think with the Damien Harris concussion and him not being able to play, I do think this opened it up for Stevenson to get more volume in that backfield. Like, this isn't a situation where it's going to be like David Montgomery coming back to Chicago. I think it's going to be closer to a situation like what CEH is going to come back into with the Chiefs backfield. And while you may not see a true 50-50, Stevenson will see a pretty sizable volume. He is a big body back, so my guess is he will also see a lot of the goal line work. So the little bit that Harris was getting, I think, is going to get eaten away by Stevenson and his ability that he showed against Cleveland. So, Derek, that was the first pick that came to my mind too, was, Ramondre Stevenson's back. Like, there's a possibility there. I think another possible option, depending on how deep your league is or how desperate you are, is it looks like Jamal Williams is coming back for the Detroit Lions, where at the beginning of the season, and this is a long time ago, so I understand that, but where the Lions were really kind of successful as an offense was they let Williams kind of run between the tackles a little bit. They'd get Williams and Swift involved in the passing game, and then kind of spread it out from there. So if he's back, if the Green Bay running back's out there, you absolutely need to grab him.
Yeah, A.J. Dillon.
If A.J. Dillon is there, he is a top 5 running back this week. Yep. Top 5 back this week. So
yeah, if he's available on your waiver wire, you absolutely need to go out and get him. It was one of those that when I was going through the waiver stuff, and we'll get to our waiver wires here in a little bit, guys, and we'll go through some of the top options on the waiver wire. But A.J. Green was rostered in more than 50% of leagues out there on average, so he didn't make a waiver wire, the waiver wire cut, so to speak, on when we talk to him. But yeah, if A.J. Dillon is available in your league, that's the move to do, and I would follow that up by Ramadre, on the chance that Damien Harris doesn't go there. So, Alex, any other thoughts there?
I would throw Dante Foreman out there.
Yes.
If you're in kind of a league, but Dante Foreman's probably available there in the Tennessee backfield. He had a pretty productive week in week 10. I think they're leaning towards him being the quote unquote feature back, if you will. I mean, obviously nobody's going to be Derrick Henry, and Adrian Peterson is still, there, obviously, but Dante Foreman seems like a pretty good candidate for a pickup this week.
Yeah. And Cloudy, looks like you're the second on the waiver with an 8-team league. So there's a chance that A.J. Dillon is available in an 8-team league sitting there on your waiver wire. So if he's available, it's a smash on that one and make it happen. Do what you can to get that on there. That's absolutely worth burning a waiver priority for A.J. Dillon if he's sitting out there, because to Kevin's point, at worst case, I think the floor for him is a top 10 back, but I think realistically he could easily be a top 5 type of back this week. So, and not only that, you're also looking at the fact that Aaron Jones is set to miss at least 1 to 2 weeks on that one with that injury there. So, there's a chance that he's going to be impactful for you this week and next week. So, very cool. Guys, let's go ahead and head on over to the Pine and the Shine recap for week 10. Absolutely appreciate everybody throwing out their questions. Again, if you guys have any more questions, comments, anything like that, throw them out there. Let's talk about them. But right now we're going to talk about the Pine and the Shine. So guys, tell me about your Pines. Tell me about your Shines. Tell me if you hit. Tell me if you missed.
All right, I will start here with the Pine. I said Antonio Gibson was not going to have a very good day, and I was wrong. He had 24 carries, 64 on the ground, and 2 touchdowns. He also caught 2 balls for 14 yards. So swing and a miss there. Swing and a miss.
Hey, bada. All righty. So I hit on my Pine. I said DJ Moore was not going to be having a very good game. Change at quarterback there. Tougher matchup. So he ended up going 4 for 7, 4 receptions, 7 targets, only 24 yards. So I ended up hitting on my Pine and getting that one right. Kevin, what about you?
I'm going to take the hit by default. So I said Pine, Damien Harris. We talked about this pre-show. This was last Tuesday. We all, I think, kind of fully expected him to clear concussion protocol Saturday when the news came out that he did not. It made this a default hit. So I promise I wasn't trying to take the cop out. I really thought he was going to clear, and I'm almost happy for my own personal record that he didn't clear, because the way that Stevenson went off, that would have been Harris, and I would have had to take the L.
Yep. That is very true. All righty, let's go ahead and head on over into the Shine. So, guys, how did your Shines turn out for week 10?
I said take all of the Cowboys, but then I just singled out CeeDee Lamb. So I went with CeeDee Lamb. He had 6 catches for 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also threw in a carry for 12 yards. So that was a hit.
Yes, it was, and I very much liked him doing that on our home league roster when I was playing Kevin and watching that score go. So I called for the Shine of Ezekiel Elliott, a lot along the same kind of lines that Alex was talking about, where it was a revenge game for a coach, and turns out that that's what a revenge game for a coach looks like. But Ezekiel Elliott, 14 carries, 41 yards, 3 receptions for 15 yards. So yardage-wise, didn't get it done. But what he did do is he did get into the end zone 3 separate times, 2 on the ground, 1 through the air, and finished as a top 10 running back for y'all last week. So Ezekiel Elliott was a hit for me.
Yeah, I'm taking a shine, but barely. It's a shimmer. I don't know if it's a full shine. It was a shimmer. I had James Conner. I really expected this game to go completely differently than what it did. Carolina had other plans for us all. So Conner was 10 carries, 39 yards, touchdown, 3 catches on 4 targets for 25 yards. So finished right in that, top end of RB2 pack, but it was not quite the top 12 performance that everyone was hoping for. Close enough to projection that I'm taking the shine because he didn't bust your team, but it was not the glorified shine that I expected to come into this week with.
Fair enough. All righty, guys. So the Pines and Shines, that ends up moving us right now as far as the current standings go through week 10. Alex is 9-11. I'm at 11-9, and Kevin's sitting at the top of the pile there at 13-7. So Kevin definitely bringing the heat when it comes to his Pines and his Shines. Good job there. We've got another question coming in on YouTube here. JAC, y'all like Cooks or Mclaurin better moving forward? Both have 84 targets on the year. Guys, what are your thoughts on this one?
I like Mclaurin better, but barely. But I've liked Cooks more, and our show has. But over the years, I have liked Cooks more than a lot of people in this industry. He's really the only show in Houston. So when Tyrod gets clicking, and his first game back was a bit of a bummer, but I do expect that rapport to kind of come back. But Terry McLaurin is just kind of next level good at this point, and the Washington football team, I about called him by the other name. You almost had to find me. The Washington football team really needs him to perform, to kind of go anywhere. Like when he has poor or subpar games, the team loses. When he kind of is able to break loose and shake coverage, and they're able to feed him the football, 8 or 9 times a game, they seem to win. So I'm going to take McLaurin because I think Houston's about ready to pack it up and just play for the draft pick.
And that's where I'm at with McLaurin too, because there are still some very, very meaningful football games left on Washington's schedule. If you look at it, guys, I mean, they get the Panthers this week, they get the Seahawks the week after, and then the Raiders, right? That's the next 3, all non-division games. But then look at their last 5 games. It is the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Eagles, and the Giants. If they get hot, run those 5 games, well, now we're talking like those are meaningful football games. So I like the fact that McLaurin is going to be playing in meaningful football games more than what Cooks is going to be playing in. So that's where I'm at. I'd say McLaurin just because of the meaningful football that's still ahead, whereas Houston does not have any meaningful football ahead of them.
Yeah, I'm also on the McLaurin train on that one as well, and very much the same points that you guys made, so I won't beleaguer the point, but sounds like it is a unanimous McLaurin for the panel here, but all of us are very much liking Cooks and have been on that train for a while there. So, JAC, I hope that helps that out.
Also,
Cloudy giving us an update on the waiver wire there. Decided to let my dad pick up Dillon because he has Aaron Jones. I'll go with Stevenson. There's, you do you, but I will tell you that from experience on this show with this panel and the 3 of us having played in a same league and being friends for as long as we have, there's very rarely one that will let somebody get a pick or something like that over on us, and we would.
There are no friends in fantasy football.
Yes, that's a very good way of saying that.
There are no friends in fantasy football.
In his defense, I helped my dad draft, and he's running away with our league this year.
Killing it. He is crushing it this year.
I think he's had like 2 waiver wire pickups all season long.
He hasn't done
had
anything.
to do anything. His team just runs out there and crushes everybody.
Yes, it does.
He's on a heater for sure.
Although there's only been one team to give him that to hang an L on him, and I'm glad that I did. Yale, I hope you're watching. Alrighty, JAC said, is there any point picking up a tight end off of waivers to start over Hawk? My options are basically Dan Arnold, Hunter Henry off of waivers. You have Goddard on your bench. I'm not a big fan of carrying 3 tight ends on my roster on that one, and I don't know that I'm going to necessarily put in Dan Arnold or Hunter Henry over either Hawkinson or Dallas Goedert on that one. But what are you guys' thoughts?
Well, Goddard's got a clear concussion protocol, so I get where he's coming from, right? Hawkinson's coming off a total stinker crap fest turd of a game.
A nothing burger, right?
Yeah.
No points.
No points. So I understand.
By the way, the team that I lost to that I got devoed on
had Hawk.
Had Hawk.
And really, Hawkinson's schedule down the stretch is not very favorable to him. Like, it's not getting any easier for him. I thought Jared Goff would be doing a better job of finding ways to get him the ball, but Detroit's doing Detroit-type things. So it's frustrating, and here we are. Hunter Henry's a sneaky good play. I'm not a Dan Arnold believer. Like, I'm just not buying any of that Jacksonville stuff. When Goddard's healthy, he's going to be your play going forward. So if your trade deadline hasn't passed and you can flip Hawkinson for something and pick up Hunter Henry, by all means do that. Like, even if it's something like a 2-week rental in AJ Dillon or Ramondre Stevenson, or something like that. These guys that we've been talking about a lot this show already. Flip Hawkinson for something if your deadline hasn't passed. Otherwise, going forward, I think I would trust Hunter Henry more than TJ Hawkinson at this point, and that pains me to say.
Fair enough. Alex, got a split panel there. Got to weigh in. What are your thoughts?
I think you ride it out with Hawkinson because you've already got – you've got 2 really good tight ends there with Hawkinson and Goddard. I think you hold on to Goddard, obviously, because like Kevin said, when he comes back, it's he's the guy that you got to play. But I'll stick with Hawkinson and just hope that Jared Goff figures it out.
Here's a follow-up to it. He had someone who would trade me Noah Fant for Hawk. Thoughts?
Yeah, if you can get Noah Fant, go for it, because Noah Fant's consistently seeing, 6 or 7 targets a game, 4-ish receptions, 4.5 receptions a game for about 54 yards.
And the Broncos are more likely to find the end zone than the Lions are, so there's a better chance that he falls into the end zone.
You might have to record that and then play it again. Like, that's scary to say, but
so scary.
Noah Fant's floor is safer. So if that trade is still there and you can just play the matchup between Fant and Goddard going forward, I would pull the trigger on that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would too. So I like it. Got another one coming in. Michael on YouTube. I need help here, guys. I'm trying to trade for Aaron Jones. He has Cook, Diggs, Keenan Allen, Pitts, Hollywood. Has Renfro, Moss, Gaskin on the bench. What package can I send for Aaron Jones morally? LOL. Don't want to give up a lot to get him, but would love him at my RB2. So that's really going to depend on some of your league makeup and how that person that's got him rostered is going to view that one. I can tell you that if you're looking to try and come get Aaron Jones, who's been pretty consistent and pretty decent for fantasy, it's going to take a little bit to get him off of my roster and onto yours. So it's going to take a little bit to get there. Guys, what are your thoughts?
As crazy as it is, people have such a love affair with Kyle Pitts still. Mm-hmm. I'd trade Kyle Pitts and see if you can give up Kyle Pitts and Myles Gaskin or Moss, one or the other, whichever one you'd rather not have on your roster, and see if that does it. It may not work, but Kyle Pitts still has that love affair around him, even though Atlanta has struggled to find ways for him to be useful with Calvin Ridley not on the field as he's away. I shouldn't say recovering, dealing with the mental health situation that he's in at the moment. So Pitts is no different than the big bunch of tight ends. I mean, he might splash one week, he might not, but he's not much more than a streamer, in my opinion, going forward, just because there's a lack of options in Atlanta. So Pitts has the name value that you could probably drive home with Moss or Gaskin to at least see if that opens the door for Aaron Jones. But I don't know if he's got Cook. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's an upgrade.
Worst he can say is no, right? Like,
and Michael
and Ertz is right there. I like Ertz there too. So it's worth a shot. Like I said, he may not take it. He, she, they, whatever, may not take it. But I think that might be the least amount that you would have to give up to get an Aaron Jones. The fact that Jones isn't playing for the next 2 weeks kind of helps because you're taking on all the risk of this sprained MCL and your opponent isn't. So that might play into it is, they can at least play Gaskin and have some sort of production from that spot if they're thin at running back. So it's definitely worth the shot. See if you can get something done.
Absolutely. All right. Last question from YouTube for now. And we'll get over into the clutch and not so much there. But Nate on YouTube asking DJ Moore or Hopkins if he plays.
What? Well, I'm gonna answer this later in the show.
It's DeAndre Hopkins. It's DeAndre Hopkins. And it doesn't matter whether it's Colt McCoy or Kyler Murray. I don't expect Kyler to play this week. I will call that on Tuesday. Their bye week is next week. So there's a very good chance that they know that they're 2 games up on the Rams in the division at the moment. They already have the loss to the Packers, and it's going to be hard catching up with that team at the moment as well. So they're not really pushing to get Kyler back right away. They understand that this team has higher aspirations. So I think it's Hopkins if he plays. But DJ Moore, is
this one's going to be painful to say.
It's not a terrible pivot if you have to. Like, the guy's still seeing targets. He saw 7 targets. Right. It's the quality of the targets that kind of sucks. So you need DJ Moore to fall into the end zone to truly be relevant if Hopkins isn't playing. And then again, there's a chance Hopkins doesn't play either. Again, bye weeks next week. They get 2 weeks for the price of 1 now. So there's a good chance that him and Kyler both don't play. So you're probably going to end up playing DJ anyway.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And then Michael was saying too that the Aaron Jones manager is 2-8. So yeah. So you can definitely probably try and find some things there to make that work. And if they're 2-8, they probably don't have the roster to really make a run of that without him on there. So you can frame that up on a couple of different ways that you're taking on the risk of that trade. That you're. So there's some ways that you can work that thing to ultimately bring that one to your favor, I think, on that one. So great questions, guys. Appreciate everybody chiming in and letting us to talk through some of those things. Let's go ahead and head on over to the clutch and the not so much. So tell me about your clutch. Tell me about your not so much for week 10.
So I scraped to find a clutch just because this is part of our segment, even though I'm not happy with my team here on this Tuesday. Zeke, as for all the reasons that Derek described earlier in his shine, the touchdowns put Zeke over the top and kept him fantasy relevant on a day where Dak and CeeDee Lamb kind of ruled the roost and Dallas just did whatever they wanted against a really bad Atlanta defense, with a very honorable mention, and only rightfully so because I called him out last week, in Justin Jefferson, who finally kind of showed up and had himself a really good game for the first time in about 5 or 6 weeks. So it was good to see him kind of put together that full stat sheet worth of production, even though it came in a home league losing effort.
Well, Kevin, you're a much better man than I am because I am not going to put anybody up for a clutch performance off of my home league team, because nobody needs to be recognized for that, including the owner, who made some pretty bad decisions there when it came down to it. So I will say that nobody was clutch for me, especially not Darrell Williams, who was on my bench.
The clutch player on your team was your opponent, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, those are always rough weeks there. I had a pretty fantastic fantasy week in the home team. Things finally started kind of clicking a little bit there. So CD and Dak, yes sir.
He had DeAndre Swift, like 33 carries for 130 yards.
Yeah,
is pretty damn close. Like, I get it, you're frustrated.
Look, DeAndre Swift
let's
had a
call
great
a spade a spade.
That's
DeAndre
fair.
Swift was your clutch because he had a great game against Pittsburgh. The rest of your roster did just completely piss their pants.
Yeah, he was RB15 last week in half-point scoring, but in our league there, that he certainly would have been finishing better than an RB15. So just with the way we do our scoring. So he probably was RB10. He was probably an RB1 for you.
And also, yeah, and Darrell Williams had a great week. Just unfortunately, I elected to play Alex Collins over Darrell Williams. Didn't think that the Chiefs would figure it out quite as well as they did on Sunday night.
Fair enough. Yeah, so I had the stack of Dak and CD, and both of those two did some very amazing things. CMC also putting up some great work on that roster as well. So some beautiful things starting to happen for the Mean Machine here. We'll see if we can keep that rolling here. Guys, let's go ahead and head over into the not so much. So who was not so much on your fantasy roster?
Here, let's go through the list. DJ Moore sucked. TJ Hawkinson sucked. Jacoby Brissett, an emergency spot start, was yanked because he tweaked his elbow, and then they put in Tua to finish the game off, so that sucked. Let's see, who else? Aaron Jones got injured. That's not his fault, but that was a real bummer. That sucked for me. Yeah, it was Tom Brady even sucked. I mean, my whole roster up and down, just bleh. Just that's what they did, all over themselves. Bleh, bleh. It was terrible.
I could do the same thing. Justin Herbert sucked. James Conner, not so great. T.Y. Hilton, 1 catch for 5 yards.
There's a really easy way to know whether to start T.Y. Hilton and not start him. If he's playing Houston, start him. If he's playing anybody else at this point, don't bother.
I will say that was an emergency play there because I also have Robert Woods, who found himself on the IR on Friday. So that was just brutal. I was utterly offended by the effort that my team put out there. I'm embarrassed, and I shouldn't be allowed to play fantasy football after this week. It was so bad. It's just so bad. So bad. 3-7. Unbelievable. I'm the defending damn champion.
Well, there's always next year, right? Alrighty, so
maybe I don't even know if I want to play next year. We'll see.
I'm just waiting for Alex's breakup letter for the Broncos again this year because those always make me smile. So I'm just waiting to the point where we hear that one again.
I tell you, there should have been one this week, but I checked out from football this weekend, much to my mental health. Really appreciated that because I didn't have to dwell on the Broncos sucking on top of all of my fantasy teams sucking. So that was good for me to just check out and not watch that. But I can tell you, when I saw that score, the thoughts started coming into my head of, my God, man, you destroy the Cowboys and then you go and lay that egg at home against the freaking Eagles. Good night. Gotta
love a letdown game. So my not so much was Russ coming back off the injury and J.D. McKissick. So and that was one of the things that even in the Sunday show when we were talking about should I start Russ, should you not start Russ, I said that in a lot of cases I'm going to bench Russ unless I've got a better option to roll out there. And, had to roll him out there, still won the matchup. And, but JD McKissick, Russell Wilson where my not so much is there. A couple more questions coming in here. Coach Craig saying, what up, fellas? Coach Craig, welcome in. Appreciate you tuning in there. Cloudy is got a question. What, perfect transition here towards the waiver wire, but the Cards defense had a bad showing. Anyone I should start on top of them? Top 3 waiver defenses are the Ravens, the Colts, and the Browns. So, guys, thoughts on this one?
The Ravens aren't a terrible play looking for a bounce back game against the Bears. Justin Fields has started to look slightly better, but it's going to be a tough road ahead for Justin Fields here for the rest of the season. So the Ravens are probably just as competitive. The Colts against the Bills, I would stay away from that game. That game is – I don't know that it's going to be a high-scoring affair, but I do think both sides are going to put up some points and probably some yards to go along with it, especially if Jonathan Taylor can continue his streak of just pure dominance against the rest of the NFL. And the Browns, there's too many holes right now. They look too banged up. They for a couple weeks, they look like they're getting together, and then they're kind of sliding back. So ride with the Cards, or if you want to pivot, I would pivot to the Ravens, but those are the clear top options for me this week.
I completely disagree with you. I would say if you're going to go for a defense this week, I like the Ravens. The Ravens are such a weird team because they always play to the level of their opponent. Like, it's so weird how, like, whatever their opponent is, that's them. They are the mirror of whatever team is on the opposite sideline. I don't like the Colts this week because they're at Buffalo. I don't like the Ravens because they're at Chicago. I do like the Browns because they're at home taking on the Lions. So that's where I would go is with the Browns. And again, Cardinals on the road. I think that the Browns defense at home is probably the best play this week going up against the Lions.
I kind of like that one as well, right? The Lions, they just haven't managed to put it together. And this, who knows, this may be the week that they do that in. But this one very much, the Lions, I don't see being able to stop Cleveland's running attack at all. So this is going to turn into a time of possession type of battle. And short of these Cleveland running backs just breaking these long runs, scoring touchdowns at will type of thing, you're going to see Cleveland, I think, rack up the time of possession, keep this a low-scoring affair, which will help the defensive special team scoring on that one. So I'm with you, Alex. I like the Browns on this one as well. Claudia also saying the Niners and Titans going again 31-32 ranked defensive teams. So our offensive teams, maybe one of them. And you could potentially look at that, but the Titans are rolling up against Houston, right? Like, the Titans this year have played really well against good teams and have had big letdown games against teams that they should have walked away with victories very easily from. So one of those that I'm not necessarily trusting that one. The Niners, while they look good, Shanahan has had McVay's number for the last couple of meetings on this one. 5 straight wins now for the 49ers have over the Rams. So I think there's a little bit that was more of a matchup-based thing than them necessarily putting it together and looking really good there. But any other thoughts on those ones, guys?
I like them. The Niners are intriguing going up against a Jacksonville team, but it's a cross-country trip, which is probably why I'd stay away from that one. Those are always very interesting when West Coast teams have to go to an Eastern time zone and play the early morning game. So I'd probably pivot away. And Tennessee keeps finding ways to win, but I'm not a believer in that defense.
No, not at all. Question of the century: who's more disappointing, Goff or Darnold, and are either starting in the NFL next year, or do they get Trubisky'd? Toff is still starting, I think, because they still owe a massive contract on that deal next year. Am I okay? So money wise, I think he's going to be the starter just because you're going to be paying him buku bucks. Sam Darnold, they just extended after the draft there as well. So, but his contract's much more manageable, and you may see them be able to trade him off, cut him, things like that. But I think both of those guys very well may be starters next year for their respective teams.
I'd tell you, I don't know that either one are truly disappointing. They're just the guys that we thought they'd be. Sam Darnold had a flash of brilliance the first couple of weeks when McCaffrey was in and he was running for all these touchdowns. It was kind of RB1 we were joking around about here on the show for the first couple of weeks. And then reality set in. Like Sam Darnold went back to his old ways of not being able to read defense as well. He's forcing the ball into crappy situations. His ball security is lackluster. Jared Goff seemingly plays timid, like he doesn't like to drive the ball down the field. If it's not a sure thing, he's not going to pull the trigger. So I don't know if disappointing is the right word, but they kind of reaffirmed they're the guys that we kind of tagged them as being on the way in. If I had to give the nod, I'd say Darnold more so disappointing than Goff, just because Darnold at least has pieces around him. There's outside of DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson, there is nothing, absolutely nothing in Detroit to get excited about. In Carolina, you had McCaffrey, he got injured. You saw Darnold play terribly during his injury, and then right as McCaffrey's coming back, he gets hurt. So you don't know if Darnold would have bounced back, being able to dump off to McCaffrey and have that relief valve to take the pressure off of him. But as it stands, he couldn't find Robbie Anderson. He quit driving the ball down to DJ Moore and letting him hit those explosive plays. They traded away Dan Arnold, who was being a pretty useful piece for them in the passing game, just a relief valve. He hasn't gotten Terrence Marshall involved. I'm more disappointed in Joe Brady than I am Sam Darnold, but that's probably a story for another day.
That's you're probably right. Alex, any other thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'd say Darnold was the bigger disappointment. I remember when we were talking about it, guys, when that trade happened, or that was a trade, that move happened. And I just remember thinking hey, this could work. Like Darnold had nobody. He got Adam Gase in New York, and so now he finally has, and sure CMC wasn't around, but he had weapons around him, and he started off so great, and then just even when he was healthy, just not there. I mean, it just was not. I feel like Darnold's more disappointing. We knew that the Lions were going to be bad. Didn't matter if they had Matthew Stafford, they have Jared Goff. Like, the Lions are a bad team. So the expectations were incredibly low for Jared Goff. So I would say Darnold is the bigger disappointment. But both of them are going to still be, they'll still have jobs next year.
Very cool. Couple of questions we're going to get to, and then we're going to head over into the waiver wire. A.J. Brown and Tyler Lockett are in my flex, and wide receiver 2, they are bad. I think you'll see Tyler Lockett get better down the back half here with Russ coming back. The chemistry between him and Russ is real. A.J. Brown, is one of those that where he has gotten much of his production in the past is that play action pass. And you had a guy that was an all-world running back named Derrick Henry to be able to set that up and go. And with him out there and Julio now missing too, A.J. Brown is the only show in town. It makes it rather easy for defenses to kind of bracket coverage him and scheme him out quite a bit there. So I think they're a little bit more victim of circumstance as far as your fantasy roster goes than they are necessarily bad. But I definitely feel your pain on that one.
Yeah, with as well as A.J. Brown looked his rookie season, we since the Chipotle incident.
I always love Coach Craig throwing out some of those random picks.
What am I missing there?
Well, we were talking about A.J. Brown, and then Coach Craig throws out the A.J. Brown been a wide receiver 1 since the Chipotle incident.
What happened at the Chipotle?
Google it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Google it.
Yeah.
Say less.
I think the thing that's disappointing about A.J. Brown in general is this is who the Titans drafted him to be, right? They drafted him to be a true X receiver where he can dominate the game, even with some of these coverages. And I think they fooled themselves into thinking that he was ready to do this on his own because of how the Titans are set up. Again, victim of circumstance. Losing Derrick Henry is a huge loss, and everybody knew that it was going to be tough for him and Tannehill to succeed without the likes of Derrick Henry taking so much pressure off of them. Now the safeties are able to sit back. So the Titans are getting completely different looks now than what they've had in the last 3 or 4 seasons when with Henry behind Tannehill, because they're not worried. Like, you're not worried about Adrian Peterson breaking off an 89-yard run on, 2nd and 8. Well, Derrick Henry, you have to worry about that. We've seen it so many times now that it's a possibility. So the safeties can sit back. They can play the bracket coverage. Lockett got completely alienated by Gino, yeah. And so now that Russ is back, Lockett will have some more success coming down here. You'll see some peak games from Lockett, and you'll have some valley games. It'll go back to kind of the standard roller coaster ride of Alex's wide receiver 1 in Seattle, and we'll just kind of see how it goes. But if, DK Metcalf keeps getting kicked out of games, you'll see Tyler Lockett be used a heck of a lot more.
Facts. Alex, any other thoughts there?
No, I mean, I think ever since I went on that deep dive of Tyler Lockett is the wide receiver 1 in Seattle, Tyler Lockett has not even showed up in like wide receiver 16 territory, and not like wide receiver 16 on the week, but like the 16th grouping of wide receivers.
All righty. Dolphins D at the Jets, or Titans D home to Houston? And
I like home team defenses. There's crowd plays a factor in defense, and I like if I'm in between 2 teams like that, especially going up against 2 bad teams. Although the Jets offense sometimes can put some stuff together and score points. I always go with home team defense.
I'll ride the hot hand with Miami. The way I think they found some momentum and just kind of started to click. So, Derek and I were talking about this Friday night, I think is where it was. Like, the Dolphins defense that we saw last Thursday was the carryover from 2020 that we thought we were going to get this year and just hadn't quite showed up. Well, they finally emerged, and they played Baltimore beautifully. They really did. But I expect a lot of that to continue. I think they kind of found some swagger. They realized that, they still have something to play for. And while they may not win the division, they can at least cause a lot of pain for the remaining teams on their schedule, starting with their division opponent, the Jets, who this game's normally like 17-13 anyway. Like, this game is traditionally really low scoring. So I like that, as opposed to the chance that, the Titans and Houston get into some sort of a weird shootout because both defenses are meh and both offenses are meh.
Yeah, then not only that too, but I think the Jets are going to get one Mr. Zach Wilson back starting under center. And we just haven't seen that necessarily click this year. So yeah, I'm going to ride the hot hand as well with you, Kevin, and go up against the rookie quarterback as the matchup. So I like it. Let's go ahead and head on into the waiver wire. We're going to talk some waiver wire here. And guys, so your thoughts on, let's go ahead and start with just the quarterbacks here. List as it sits: Fields, Jones, Tua, Mac Jones, Cam Newton, Jimmy Garoppolo. Any thoughts on the order there?
I like Mac Jones this week on Thursday night going up against Atlanta. Tua, I don't want to say Tua. Daniel Jones going Monday night against the Buccaneers is intriguing just because of how the pass defense is played. Fields is also intriguing, seeing if he is taking those next steps in his rookie year. If he continues to run the ball, Justin Fields might have the most upside out of any one of these guys. But he also has the lowest floor, in my opinion. So it is a boomer bust play with Fields. Mac Jones is more consistent. Cam Newton's the feel-good story of the week. And he's probably that perfect median. Like, he may not have huge weeks, but he knows how to use McCaffrey. He knows how to use DJ Moore because he's played with those guys before. I don't know if Robbie Anderson's going to be seeing the ball a bunch more. Like, we saw him get into the end zone, and that was great, but Cam doesn't really drive the ball down the field. So Robbie Anderson isn't going to see a ton of opportunities, but you should see DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey continue to see a healthy amount of volume coming out of that Carolina offense.
Alex, any thoughts on that list?
Yeah, I think I would move Mac up to 1. Again, the Ravens, I expect them to win this game, but I expect this game to be pretty close. Just because the Ravens, that's just what they do. I think Justin Fields will probably have a really good first half. The Ravens come back in the second half and end up winning the game. So that it scares me a little bit with that. Max matchup, I think is I'm trying to find it here really quick.
He plays Atlanta. Mac Jones plays Atlanta on Thursday.
At Atlanta.
Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah. I mean, that one is the most intriguing to me outside of Cam Newton. But again, I'm not sure what to make of Cam right now.
Very good. Let's go ahead and hit the running backs, which right now it's Ramondre Steven, Lat Murray, Deontay Foreman, Ty Johnson, Eno Benjamin, Wayne Gallman, Matt Breida. Any thoughts on this one here?
Stevenson's definitely one. I know we talked about A.J. Dillon briefly because his ownership was high enough it didn't make this list. So the amendment for those of you who are listening, A.J. Dillon is clearly the number one waiver wire pickup across all of fantasy this week, clearly. Outside of that, since we don't have them listed, I like the Stevenson pickup here. Latavius Murray, with them releasing Le'Veon Bell, honestly, that means better things for him and Devonta Freeman. So Murray's not a bad pickup. Ty Johnson has seen some more usage in the last couple weeks, but that's because the games have been kind of out of hand. He's been using mop-up duty and taking some of the catches away from Michael Carter. I don't expect that to continue. Kind of the same thing with Wayne Gallman this past week. Like, he saw a bunch of volume because the Falcons got their teeth kicked in by the Cowboys. I don't know if that's going to be the case. He very well could eat into some of Mike Davis's timeshare, Cordell Patterson ankle injury, right? That he's fighting through. So the Falcons might have to get a bit more traditional from the running back position. So you'll see Gallman and Mike Davis probably split some carries. Matt Breida doesn't do anything for me. I don't want any part of it.
Alex, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Coach Sen, I obviously Stevenson, even if Harris is back healthy, I think, they're going to take their time with it. They've shown that they can win without him. So why rush him back? Especially on a Thursday night, like that seems a little crazy. Murray, I think, I guess all this to say, I like your top 3 in that order.
All right. I like it. Let's go ahead and hit up the wide receivers here, and we'll just run through the top 9. Gallup, Mooney, Robbie Anderson, Elijah Moore, Bryan Edwards, Will Fuller, Jamal Agnew, Kendrick Bourne, Deontay Harris. What are your thoughts on this one?
I like Michael Carter. Michael Carter. Goodness gracious, Michael Gallup. Sorry, excuse me. I'm still stuck on running backs. anytime you can get a piece of the Cowboys offense, it's a good thing. Michael Gallup is still in a contract year, working his way back. He is going to be a valuable part of that offense going forward, keeping the defense kind of spread out. So I like him. Darnell Mooney, I think, is wide receiver 36, I believe, on the year. Him and Justin Fields do have a rapport of some sort. Now, the 2 touchdowns, I guess 2 weeks ago, since they were on a bye last week, definitely helped with some of that. But Mooney's a guy that, if you have some injury history or injury issues on your roster, that he at least provides a safe, very low but safe floor. Robbie Anderson, I'm not doing the Robbie Anderson thing. Elijah Moore might move up the list a little bit. Like, he seems to be getting more and more attention in that Jets passing game, so I do like that. And Brian Edwards, we saw a sighting from him against the Chiefs too, so he's a guy that I thought would be a little bit more relevant sooner than what this has taken. But all these guys are flyers for sure, but I think Gallup's probably my number one, and then after that, a lot of it's matchup dependent, quite frankly.
I like it. Alex, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I have Gallup in the home league, and I was hesitant last week because of first game back from the injury. I was a little concerned because he didn't get too much work his way, but it was enough. And by the time that that game was so out of hand by halftime that the pass game wasn't exactly needed. So I like Gallup here as the one, and then as Kevin said, it's a flyer from there out.
Alrighty. Tight ends. Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
I was just saying, with the Cowboys playing the Chiefs this week, if you're looking at this 1 week, I think I kind of took too big of a look at this. With the Cowboys playing the Chiefs this week, I want to reiterate, Michael Gallup is the best player on this roster. I think we all expect that game to have a lot of scoring and to be up and down. As long as Mahomes and Dak are still throwing darts, Gallup will be involved in this week's game.
Yeah, not to mention the Chiefs' defense is still suspect.
Very true. Alrighty, let's hit up the tight ends here. Logan Thomas, Tyler Conklin, Dan Arnold, CJ Uzomah, Colt Mccoy, Gerald Everett. Any thoughts on this one?
If Logan Thomas is cleared to play, he's still my favorite of this list. I think he instantly helps make that Washington team a little bit more dynamic on offense. DeAndre Carter's done his best to kind of step up and to fill some shoes alongside Terry McLaurin, but Logan Thomas back would be a big boost to that offense. Tyler Conklin, he just keeps finding ways to get in the end zone. And I'm not blown away by Tyler Conklin, but when it comes down to it, if you're streaming tight ends, he seems to be a fairly valuable asset, right? He finds ways to get in the end zone. He's seeing about 4 catches a game or so. And if you can get one of those into the end zone, it's paying for your price of admission. Dan Arnold, I'm not touching. Komet, I'm not touching. I like Gerald Everett, though, at the bottom. Now that Russ is back and seeing Everett go, I think we'll see him more involved as Seattle tries to find a way to be relevant here and finish out the season on a heater, see if they can get into the playoffs.
I like it. Alex, what are your thoughts?
Well, I will preface this by saying I have been so bad at the tight end position this year of picking the right one or just picking a tight end that if I gave any advice about tight ends this week or probably subsequent weeks from here on out, it would just be in bad faith. So I will skip this.
So you're pulling the fading yourself card. I like it.
Yep.
Alrighty. Alrighty, guys. So that kind of wraps up the waiver wire. Again, if you guys have any questions, anything like that, throw them out there. We do have a couple of questions sitting here. JAC asking Ryan Tannehill home to Houston or Jalen Hurts home to New Orleans. I'm taking Jalen Hurts in this one.
Hurts.
Cosign.
Okay. Unanimous decision on that one. Then Mclaurin at Carolina, Brandon Cooks at Tennessee. Not stoked about the McLaurin-Jackson matchup. Carolina's been tough on wide receivers and hasn't necessarily given up a lot of points to opposing wide receivers. Tennessee is beatable on the over the top on some of those younger secondary players. But between the two, I'm probably going to lean at playing McLaurin over Cooks if I'm sitting at that decision.
I think it's McLaurin because of the Christian McCaffrey factor. Like the Carolina Panthers are just such a different team when McCaffrey's playing and he's able to get his kind of full complement of touches, that it does force teams to play them differently and try and take some shots to keep up at times. The Washington football team is not going to be deterred by Carolina, and they're feeling pretty good about themselves with this win off of Tampa Bay. So I'm going to lean McLaurin, ride the horse that got you there. But if you have any reservation about about Terry McLaurin, Brandon Cooks is a great pivot because he should see a ton of volume against Tennessee.
Right.
Yeah, I'm on McLaurin this week too, and I think a lot of the Antonio Gibson work might open up some things for McLaurin against Carolina, and what Kevin said, where they're going to have to try and keep up with what Carolina is doing. So I would lean more towards McLaurin. And again, I mean, what week do we finally see Houston pack it in? And you just hope it's not the week that you have Brandon Cooks in your lineup.
Fair enough. All righty, guys. Let's go ahead and head on over to the Thursday night. We've got New England Patriots heading to Atlanta to play the Falcons. The Patriots are favored by 7 in this one. The over-under is 47.5. What are your thoughts on this game?
So I always pick games with my gut, and I go with my first instinct. It works some of the time. I would venture to say most of the time. And by most, I mean like 51%. So my gut said on this one to go with Atlanta, not just the +7 at home, a 7-point dog. I'll go Atlanta wins outright, but I will say that the under hits.
Wow.
I have a letdown game coming from New England.
All right. Kevin, what are your thoughts here?
I do not believe in a Bill Belichick team having a letdown week.
That's fair.
And a lot of it's that defense is just, they're really humming. They seem to be clicking on all cylinders. They're going to take away Kyle Pitts in the passing game. Like, they're not scared of the Atlanta rush attack. So they're going to take away the passing attack of Matt Ryan and Kyle Pitts and Russell Gage, who's probably going to have another goose egg, and Zacharias, who has been a flash in the pan. So I don't expect anything from this Atlanta team on Thursday night. They look like they've kind of packed it in too. So I'm taking New England, and I think it's the under because once New England kind of gets up, they're going to take the ball out of Mac Jones' hand. They're going to let whether it's Harris, whether it's Stevenson, whether it's Brandon Bolden, like they're just going to start coming at you with all 3 of their running backs and just saying, here, we're just going to bleed the clock out. We're already up 10 points, and the final score doesn't mean anything to us anyway. So this one might be pretty ugly middle third quarter through the end of the game, because if New England's in control the way I see that they will be, they're going to sit on the ball and just bleed the clock.
Yeah, I saw this thing playing out very similarly to how you had it there, Kevin. And then I realized that I am I'm on a bit of a cold streak when it comes to picking some of these things. So I ended up rethinking that one again. So this one could be a lot of having overanalyzed this one, but I see New England winning this one 27-20 when it's all said and done there. I think Atlanta finds a way to get in the end zone a couple of times here, get some field goal range a couple of times here. And so I'm going to take the under. I'm going to take New England on a almost a push type of thing as far as the spread goes. So Alrighty, guys. Another question coming in. Jesse's on YouTube asking, you taking Callaway or Tony? What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm taking Tony Monday night against a lackluster pass defense from Tampa Bay. Callaway has flashed a little bit. I'm not a big – I guess both quarterbacks don't leave me with a whole lot to believe in, but I would trust Daniel Jones slightly more than I trust Trevor Siemian. And we know that the Saints, given any sort of lead, are just going to find ways to get Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara the ball, and they'll forget all about their passing game. So I'll take Kadarius Toney in a game that I expect there to be some numbers put up on both sides as the Giants try and keep pace here, and at least gives me the hopes of a higher ceiling.
Alex, what are your thoughts?
If I read somewhere correctly, I think Vita Vea is not playing this week, or he is questionable. So that changes some things in the run game for the Giants, especially if Saquon's back healthy as they're expecting him to be this week. So I think that changes the game plan a little bit when it comes to how do you beat Tampa Bay without Big Vita in the middle there. But I still think that the dink and dunk, passing game, the short passing game is the way that you kind of matriculate the ball down the field against Tampa Bay. So I lean Tony here.
Cosign. So unanimous decision on the Tony as well. Guys, let's go ahead and head on over into the Pine and the Shine for week 11. Let's start with the Pines. Who you pine in week 11?
So I took a swing last week with Antonio Gibson. I'm taking another swing this week. I'm going to go with Emmanuel Sanders to put him on the bench against Indianapolis. I don't know that the Bills are necessarily going to need big plays against Indianapolis. I know Indy's defense is good, and I'm not sure that they'll utilize Manny Sanders in the way that we're kind of accustomed to seeing when he has those big games, and that's with big plays. So I'm going with Emmanuel Sanders as my pine this week.
Alrighty. My pine is Michael Pittman playing the Bills. They're allowing the least amount of points to opposing wide receivers on the season. And and the Bills have played good defense, even in some of their losing efforts. Like, that defense is showing up to play. So I'm going to pine Michael Pittman. Just do not see a big game coming this way. Kevin, what's your thoughts on the pine?
As alluded to in the last segment, I'm pining Matt Ryan everywhere. Like, even in super flex leagues, if Matt Ryan is my second quarterback, I'm trying to find a skill position player to start in his place. I really think this is going to get ugly for him. So Matt Ryan, no thank you.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and head on over into the shines. Guys, who you got shining in week 11?
DJ Moore. Cam is back, everybody. So I'm going with DJ Moore. In 2018, which was Cam's last full season with the Panthers, DJ Moore was the second highest pass catcher. So there is clearly some rapport there between those two. I'm going to go DJ Moore has a very nice game. And for fantasy owners, I hope.
I like the hope.
You and me both.
Alrighty. I took the shine of AJ Dillon. He has the backfield to himself this week. He's going to get plenty of volume. He's got a good offense. He's got a decent matchup. Like, all things are pointing to go for AJ Dillon to have a very big week, and I think he will. Kevin, who's your shine?
Nick Chubb going up against a Detroit defense who is scrappy but is not very good against the run. And if Nick Chubb is cleared from COVID protocol, which is the biggest thing, he needs to be cleared. But as long as he suits up, I think he has a monster game against Detroit.
Yes, I would agree with you. In fact, I was looking heavily at Nick Chubb as well for my shine when I was going through that. And I think he will have a humongous game. So, guys, let's go ahead and hit up and head into, what do you do with these guys rest of the season, right? Like, we've got some of these folks out there. Do you keep them? Are you looking to potentially try and trade them away, right? Like, it's a lot of leagues have it this week or next week as the trade deadline. So, are you trying to get a trade done here before that's done? Or are you looking to move on from them? And what does that look like? The first name on the list is going to be Cam Newton. Where are you going with Cam?
I'm picking Cam up, honestly. I mean, obviously in super flex leagues, you have to pick him up. Even in single quarterback leagues, if I've been streaming quarterbacks, I'm picking Cam up to see if we can get lightning to strike here with the usage to CMC, reconnection to DJ Moore, all that good stuff. I like him over the likes of a Ryan Tannehill, Taylor Heineke, Jones from the Giants. So Matt Ryan, like Tua. So I can already put him up into top 15 territory as a pretty safe floor for Cam Newton, and he has that rushing upside. So I'm going to try and acquire Cam Newton in a couple different leagues, whether it's free agency or trade, and see if he can give me some of that lightning in a bottle if my team's kind of just hovering around potential noise in the playoffs to really being a true contender.
Yeah, like we said, I mean, Cam's got something to prove here. I think that that plays a lot into his want to. The fact that he was cast aside, didn't have exactly a great year in New England, and then was let go for a rookie at training camp. Now he's back in Carolina, a familiar place. I think he's got a lot to prove. So that to me is kind of enough to at least kick the tires on him. I'm not sure that I'm as bullish as you are, Kevin, saying he's top 15 maybe this week, but I'd still inquire for Cam Newton. I'm definitely if I'm getting him on my roster this late, odds are you're not going to be able to flip him with trade deadlines coming up. But as a free agent pickup, and if you've got the space, I mean, he could be one of those guys that you can ride into the playoffs and feel pretty good about. If we see the McCaffrey connection, the DJ Moore connection, keep in mind this is a completely different offense from what he ran when Riverboat Ron was there. So it's a little different, but I still think that they will be smart enough to find ways to utilize his strengths as a quarterback.
Yeah, I think what I like most about him though is his matchup through the next 4 weeks. They're home against Washington, they're at Miami, then they have their bye week, and then they're home again against Atlanta. So that gets you through the first round of the playoffs. That week 13 bye, you need to be aware of that and know that that's a week you're not going to have them, and especially really in any format that you're trying to pick them up and play them. The week 15 game at Buffalo does scare me. Like that, you need to be careful in your quarterfinals or semifinals, however your league's set up, in that week 15 game against Buffalo. Yeah, like that does scare me. But to get you there, three of the next 4 weeks and their next 3 games, truthfully, that Carolina is playing, I really like his ability to make some noise in these games and at least help vault your team into position. And then once you're in the dance, you might have to pivot a little bit, but he can at least – I truly think he can get you there.
I like it. I would tend to agree there as well. That is great matchups heading down the stretch. Some other interesting thought there, right? Like, what do you do with this Patriots running back room? You've got Ramondre Stevenson looked really good last week. You got Damien Harris, may potentially miss on this one. So, it's one of those that could bring some different things together. But what are you guys thinking? What are you looking to do with this New England Patriots running back room?
I think that if you have Damien Harris, you're going to continue to ride him. Like, you really don't have much of a choice at this point. If you can package him and get something better at this point, by all means, but trade deadline is coming up or has passed in a lot of different leagues, depending on your structure. And Ramondre Stevenson is going to see some more of this goal line work. And this Patriots offense is kind of the old school Tom Brady offense when he was young, right? They're playing great defense. They're leaning on the running game and really just kind of trying to oppose their will on other teams. So I think both running backs have some pretty decent value going forward, although they do cannibalize each other somewhat. So you're not going to see – I don't think you'll see either one of these guys put up another, top 10 performance this year like Damien Harris was able to a couple weeks ago before he got the concussion.
So as a rule, I've kind of avoided New England running backs for several years now because I've been burned on a few of them. So, I'm already, out on New England running backs because of how many times it was just like, you think you have an idea of what they're going to do. And then because they just play the matchup, whatever back they feel like that week is going to get featured, that, you better hope that you were in on the meeting so that it is. I am so out on New England running backs. And again, probably to my detriment because I'm not getting the upside, but I'm also not having to deal with the fact that I may put in a guy who gets no run. So with New England running backs, it's just a general rule that I have that I'm staying away with 1,000-foot pole.
Yeah, and most years you would be right on that one. This year, though, Damien Harris has been very serviceable for fantasy, right? Like he's running back 20 on the year and most in a half-point PPR format there. So he's been a very serviceable RB2 or flex play for you. And so, that one there is he's done some good things. And I think I'm kind of where you're leaning there, Kevin. What my concern would be is that Harris misses this week on the short week. Ramondre Stevens comes in, has a very good game, right? The matchup is looking pretty good there. And he puts up another humdinger type of game where now what do you do when you're coming off a guy that has two games in a row? And at that point, do they start riding the hot hand? Does it become does it go back to Harris? Like that very much seems like that could be the back to Alex's point of the New England way. Like I could see that one happening there. So I'm hoping that Harris plays this week and kind of, comes out there and dominates like he's done a couple of different times this year, and hope that comes to fruition there. But another name on the list here, as far as what do you do with this guy, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, coming off of the injury. He's supposed to, it looks like he should clear IR this week. There's talks about him playing this game. What do you do with Clyde Edwards-Helaire going forward?
Be ready for an RBBC because Williams has played well enough to warrant and continue with some sort of volume in this offense, whether it's the passing down work or whether it's, the spelling here and there. Now, CEH was finding some good run before he got injured, right? Like 2 of his last 3 games, he was over 100 yards. They were using him a bit more. So it's not that he played himself out of playing time, but I do think Darrell Williams played himself into playing time because of how well he's played in his absence. So they're not going to be fun. It's going to be very much like the Patriots in Alex's sense of the Patriots of, I don't know that you're going to be able to truly predict what bag of goodies you're going to open up with these guys here going forward. So it's going to be a little frustrating if you can find a way to, again, move off of them. I probably would at this point if you can get something in return that has a little bit more predictability behind it. But if not, and he's still on your roster, he's really relegated to a flex spot. Like, he's no longer your RB2. You can't trust him for that. So he's really a flex spot, and I would advise people to treat him as such.
Yeah, I feel like this situation, and it's one that I dealt with last year, and you guys will remember this. Last year, I had both Devin Singletary and Zach Moss on my roster, right? And you just I could never figure out which one to play, and it drove me nuts. So I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts, because how I treated it was I tried to get one of them off my roster so that I didn't have to deal with the headache of, playing which one, which week. But I'm curious your guys' thoughts on that. If you did have a CEH and then you went and grabbed Darrell Harris and got him as that handcuff, now that CEH comes back and you're faced with this problem, what would you guys do in that situation?
Probably try and package them both together and see if I could get one. Yeah, a guy that, to Kevin's point, a little bit more sturdy there, a little bit more steady, something that's a little more predictable to it, and see if I could try and trade that off where I got the guy and the handcuff for you, and see if I couldn't get a running back that's kind of something around running back 24, 20 to 30 type of range.
Yeah, that, or else if you got to do it individually, see which one you can get more for at that point. Right. And you may not be able to. I mean,
right.
There's a lot of teams that are kind of set in their ways at this point, and they really feel like they're, in the home stretch and doing what they need to do. If your trade deadline hasn't passed, you're looking for a trade partner who is competitive, but really on the lower end of the playoff run, who feels like they can use a jolt of some sort. I don't know that either one of those players is going to be able to do it enough. Like, it might have to be a 3-for-2 or something like that type of deal to truly balance it out, because I don't know that those two by themselves is going to be a headache that a lot of playoff ready teams are going to want to deal with.
Fair enough. One last one there on it. Cortland Sutton, since Jerry Jeudy's come back, Cortland Sutton not having really very good fantasy weeks there. What are your thoughts on Cortland Sutton? What are you looking to do with him going forward?
Cortland Sutton. I like Cortland Sutton still. I think he's a product of really bad quarterback play. Like, yes. The offensive line has been banged up. So not having the tackles, Bridgewater has not had as much time as we have seen him with in the past. So we only saw one deep shot to Sutton this past Sunday against the Jets. It drew the PI. Like, he got the OPI on it, and it was a pretty, good play at the time as the Broncos were scrambling to play catch up. But it's the Broncos offense as a whole that is frustrating me at the moment. It's not necessarily Cortland Sutton specifically. So same type of deal. If you can, I'm trying to think of a good comp for Cortland Sutton right now. If you can get off of Cortland Sutton and pick up even if it's Antonio Brown's even too rich. So Cortland Sutton to Cooks. Michael Gallup and a piece. Brandon Cooks. Yeah, Brandon Cooks might be a suitable replacement. Like I said, Michael Gallup and another piece, possibly something like that. You might even have to look off position. So Cortland Sutton for a Ramondre Stevenson, or Cortland Sutton for a CEH type of something like that, if you're trying to swap and do something like that. But it's going to be tough for him here to finish this season.
I like it. Well, guys, any other thoughts on the Cortland? All righty. Well, guys, I do believe that's going to take us down to the end of it. Any final thoughts for the viewers and listeners out there?
No, it's crunch time, right? We're only a couple weeks away from the playoffs beginning. Hopefully your teams are shaping up nicely and you're able to get guys off of IR. if you're in the hunt, it's definitely not time to lose faith. You need to buckle down and do your homework. For those of you who feel like you're out of the running, I apologize for that, but keep fighting the good fight. Finish out the season strong. Do what you can do, and those who are leading the pack, continue to block and survive in advance, because that's what it is here for the rest of the season.
Maybe you'll keep playing fantasy football after this week. I'm so done. I'm so done.
Maybe instead of a Broncos breakup letter, it's Alex writes fantasy football a breakup letter.
My breakup letter with fantasy football. It's close. I tell you what, after seeing what Debo did to me on Monday night, it's close.
Oh, yeah, you had the opposite of a Monday night miracle, huh?
Yeah, Monday night meltdown is what I had.
Yeah, well, there you go. That'll happen, unfortunately. So, well, guys, I do believe that that's going to wrap it up for us. We do have some cool stuff coming your way here in the very near future. We found some different ways to play some fantasy, things like that, and we're going to be bringing that to you very, very shortly. Very excited to be talking about that here really, really soon. I'm going to be showing you guys some different ways to rock and roll that. One last comment and question coming in here. Lee is on YouTube is saying, would you trade Kamara for Tyreek? Full PPR. I'm
more prone to the running back, so I would say no, but I can't in my right mind criticize anyone for wanting to make that deal. Like, Tyreek has been the one constant of this Chiefs offense. I think Kamara is going to give up some volume to Mark Ingram as they get back into this. So you might be able to do this and make it work. So as long as you have the running back depth to kind of shuffle around there and still put a solid piece in at the running back position, it might be worth the flyer, because Tyreek's ceiling is higher than Kamara's at this point.
Absolutely. Plus, that Saints offense has not looked that great when you factor in the quarterback play as of recent. Anuna saying, yes, you should trade Kamara for Tariq if you have the running back depth. So kind of echoing your thoughts there on that one. So Anuna also asking, should I start Burrow or Cam Newton this week? It's Burrow. You should start Joe Burrow.
Yeah, you start Joe Burrow. And not that Cam can't do something, but Burrow and his connection with Jamar Chase is real. They're coming off their bye week, so I'm sure they have extra wrinkles added in, and they are clearly fighting for position in that division after giving a couple games back here after they were leading for 1 week.
Right. What you got, Alex?
Yeah, I appreciate it because Burrow's on the road, but it's Cam's first start. Again, there's so many unknowns with Cam that I would go with the safer floor, and that is Joe Burrow.
Right, Joe Burrow is going to throw the ball probably 35 to 40 times. It's just the Bengals' MO there. Cam Newton might throw the ball 20 times.
Yeah.
Might have 10 rushing attempts on that thing. So just a much lower volume for Cam on that one. Where Cam may help you out there as he may get into the end zone a couple of times should the Panthers find themselves in the red zone. So, it could give you some upside there, but Burrow is a pretty easy start for me between those two. So, guys, that is going to wrap it up for us. Appreciate everybody tuning in, checking us out, all the questions, everybody interacting. We love it. We appreciate it. Thank you guys for chatting with us and tuning in. Make sure that you're hitting us up on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Good Old Boys FF. One of the best ways to help us out is to head over to YouTube. On the YouTube channel, Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button, ring the bell. One of the best ways to support this independent podcast. We appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm Derek. He's Kevin. He's Alex. Almost messed that one up. Caught myself. I'm going to count the win that I still got it. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. From the Good Old Boys, have a good one. Be safe.